Well, Red, what are we talking about today?
Today, Matt, we are talking about Nameless Issue 4, our further descent into madness, the madness of Grant Morrison. In this cosmic tale, he left us with quite a cliffhanger on Issue 3, where we just didn't know what was real and what wasn't. Here, we further explore that area of confusion, but this time focusing on a brand new astronaut. A female astronaut takes front and center, where she is now inside of the asteroid, questioning her sanity and reality, realizing that they are within an alien brain. And as she explores this concept a little bit further, she begins to question her reality, her relationship with her parents, and the purpose of all humankind. The story leaves us at the end with the impending doom as the asteroid gradually approaches Earth and all mankind starts to realize their ultimate fate of death and destruction. Guys, what did you think of Nameless 4?
Well, if Morrison was hiding his occult fingerprints before, he kind of shows his hand, ha ha ha, here. He's literally putting tarot cards on the pages at this point. So if you're not getting the whole I'm doing magic stuff with the comic, I don't know what else to tell you. It's like, here is the chariot, here is the lovers, the magician, like it's just putting the cards on the table.
So to speak, metaphorically.
But again, it's like everything all at once, right? It's just all the things, and it struggles to, we kind of talked about this in the last issue review, like just on a purely literary level. If you mix metaphors, it's considered bad form. You're communicating horror as a result, you know? So like just on that level alone, if you were just if you were just approaching it from that particular mode, you'd have to say that this isn't doing the job that Grant Morrison would like it to do, because it's every occult esoteric symbol all at once. But but my understanding from Twitless, please help us out. Like, is that's intentional? Like that's where Grant gathers his power. Like that's what he wields to tell the sort of stories he likes to tell.
Let's take a brief pause to hear from the awesome creators joining us today and find out what cool projects they're currently working on.
Hey guys, if you love sword and sandal historical fiction with a healthy dose of ancient Roman and Egyptian fantasy mixed in, then check out Kyrie. We've got 450 pages printed so far, a fourth book on the way. Order your books today at curiecomic.com.
Modern day, classic superhero storytelling. Get The Adventures of Omega Girl, issues 1 through 5, now on Indie Planet.
Thank you to our awesome creators, and now back to the video.
So the mixture of things is very much, I think, a Grant Morrison. I think it's intentional. I think it's his approach. He outlines this in Super Gods, where he talks about his history of superhero comics, but also kind of his own history with and perspective on superhero comics and his own career and his own magical perspective on things. And he talks about the fact that his writing of comics draws upon every aspect of superhero history. He says the serious stuff from the Silver Age, the Super Horse, the Batmite, the goofy imps, the silly sci-fi stories, the goofy comedy of those previous eras is just as relevant. It's just as canonical as the serious stuff of the later Bronze Age and the contemporary era. And his approach is to mix it all up. So if you get a Grant Morrison story, you're often going to get Detective Chimp showing up and just in a story that's just as serious as contemporary stories often are, and he likes to mix all that stuff together. So Morrison taking everything from the multiverse and treating it all in the same playing field and then putting that forth is very much the way I think he sees magic, because he believes, he puts this in the notes, he thinks all gods are true, he thinks they're all real. He thinks that fiction is more real than reality in some places. And he has an interesting point when he brings up Superman. He says Superman is more real than a lot of us will ever be, because if you think about the amount of times his story has been retold, the amount of just literature that discusses there's more history of Superman out there than will ever be of me. More people will know who he is and remember who he is more than will ever remember me in my life. And so he's definitely see his perspective on things is a deliberate buffet of
Mm.
fiction and real and all of the things from the buffet of mythology and occultism that he can then put into his shopping cart and then put forth that energy, I guess, into the world to influence it.
Well,
Mm.
just going through this issue and how disorienting the entire thing is there really any harm in him, picking from a buffet and
Mm.
peppering all of these occultist story points? Maybe there are interesting things to be referenced there from that genre when crafting a comic book story. Like, who's to say we can't have a tarot card in a comic? What is the harm, really, if it adds to the narrative and makes for a stronger storyline?
I think the trick is, so the interesting thing, I really like where you're going with that. The interesting thing is this giving us a more interesting storyline? It's starting to feel like if Twitless is right, then the story on the page isn't the most interesting thing for Grant. It seems like it's what he thinks he's doing on some sort of meta level with directing Chris Burnham, with the panel composition. Like he thinks he's kind of he's doing some sort of higher level craft work, sort of, so to speak, I guess, right? And the story is serving that purpose. And maybe it's just fun and games for him even to be doing that. But it's and what once you start, as we know, once the story is, I mean, this is a tale as old as time. Once you're not just trying to tell a good story and you've got some sort of ulterior motive, even if it's just to like play with your your fun toy box of weird esotericism. What Once the story isn't the thing anymore, you start to lose your grip on I mean, you start to lose your grip on the audience's attention span for one, and you just generally don't tell as good of a story.
Well,
It remains
this
to be seen. We're still in the media res, right, of this, so maybe it's
it's
gonna save itself.
it's funny that you bring up losing the grip because this whole issue is about characters losing their grip. And so
Yeah.
this is the theme of duality is very important in this series. The sun and or sorry, the earth and the moon, whether and was it the two Kabbalah spheres of earth and the moon, Yesod and the other one I forget. What's the moon one? Anyway, so like
Well,
you,
it's
you
not
can tell
even it's not even real to buy. I mean, it's
yeah, anyways, but there's a shift here which is interesting because we get this Sophia character who hasn't really been a main character so far. Now she's point of view, and suddenly Nameless seems to be not acting in character with what we've seen of him so far, and the doubting of her point of view in reality really starts to lose its grip because you get the impression that Nameless, what we see Nameless saying in this issue doesn't sound like it's coming from him. It sounds like something is speaking through him. And that seems to be heavily implied with some of the imagery we see with some very torturous body horror that happens. Again, Event Horizon fans, you're going to love some of the imagery here going on in this comic. But some of the implications seem to be that this entity that's been possessing people may be, in fact, speaking through one or both of our two, our dyad of characters who seem to be now important, who have become kind of the center piece of what we see, at least in this issue.
Oh, it just to follow up, so it's Malkuth that's the lowest level, and Grant himself is thinking of that as the apparent world, the phenomenological, and it's Yesod that's the next level up that he's
Portraying that as the moon. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the world of of lunacy. Interestingly enough, see, like that's how you would play with these these
Yeah.
symbols
Well,
of
we also play with,
imagination, of delusion, of those kind of things.
and they also map onto male and female, which is now what we also have a male and
Yeah.
female main character. So like
Mhm.
those levels of symbolism tend to be interesting, but
Mm.
again, my contention is that Grant is actually intending more from that.
And I agree where when he starts taking these external pieces and trying to meld them in and they become the primary focus, the story does lose a lot of its own narrative. There's areas where it's strong and it's interesting, the mystery they're setting up of what exactly happened on this space station, or this mission to go into the asteroid on the spaceship. Whether or not the pilot was actually in space at all, it kind of leaves a bit of a seedling at the end that maybe he was just insane the entire time and all of this happened during a training sequence, not actually on a mission. But there's this point in the story where it really diverges and it starts to get preachy and pontificate about the pointlessness of mankind and how it's parasitic, and it just goes on and on with this character sitting on the beach drinking mai tais while indulging in his most misanthropic tendencies, and it just really deviates hard. And that's where a lot of the tarot card usage is seated. And I think it feels shoehorned in, it feels
Mhm.
forced. And I don't really understand why Grant took priority of, using that material over actually telling a good story here.
I do think that the pontificating, this is the part that I think is a little interesting. The pontificating moment it is the it's not nameless. It's very clear, like it's something it's I think it's the entity. It's whatever has been possessing people, and it's clearly very misanthropic. It's very sinister, and it's speaking through Nameless in those moments, and basically giving its perspective on humanity. Because I don't think Nameless we've given unless we're really into some mind bending territory where we have to question everything that we've read. The impression we've gotten from Nameless in the comics so far is that he's a bit of a John Constantine cynic, but he's not the kind of
Mhm.
cynic that's like a nihilist, right? So the nihilist seems to be out of character for him, which leads us to kind of believe that it is an evil force speaking through him and saying those things um out of evil. And I find that aspect a little interesting. Um I don't know if the execution is entirely on point. And again, this is one of the risks you take when you're trying to play a story this way is the more abstract and ambiguous you make it, the more easy it will be for different readers to completely end up in completely different geographic locations regarding the interpretation of your work. And some people will go, "Hey, I'm in Albuquerque and I'm exactly where I needed to be." And some other people will be like, "I took a wrong turn. I ended up in Thailand and I have no connection to the story anymore." So it's a very risky move. This is why this type of storytelling is risky, is because, there are very valid directions you can take that lead you to very different places.
Yeah,
But I
the use of tarot cards to frame each one of those moments with the entity giving those speeches felt like it was, a sign that was posted leading you to Timbuktu. Uh,
yeah.
so definitely off the beaten path.
Yeah. But what if I intentionally, like, that's my big master plan, is for everyone to show up, they're gonna arrive at a different destination. Like, I feel like Grant, he's too talented to be that bamboozled, by his, or to, like, to sniff his farts that hard. I don't
Yeah,
know. You know
this
what
is
I
where
mean?
I think Grant tips his hand as being a little reaching too far.
Mm.
I think he's clever, and I think that when he's in his
He
lane, I
is.
think he can do clever things. But when you reach too far and like, I'm actually a genius, let me show you my genius, and it's like that's where the farts huffing happens, and that's where I think Grant ends up being overrated, because there's chunks of his writing that I just roll my eyes at, whether it's Phantom X from the X-Men, or aspects I think of this story as well. Although, like I said, I ended up, my journey through the story is less about um, rolling my eyes and more about becoming more and more uneasy, and eventually wanting to just throw the book at him. Um, because I think he's actually, I think he doesn't end up in Timbuktu or Albuquerque. I think he ends up far far lower underground. If you get my drift.
Ooh. Well, you still know more than we do, so I think you're signaling that we should be paying attention to warning signs. I think this particular work, because
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
It's something else.
I think those tarot cards are your warning signs.
Hmm. But plot wise, he is uh this the asteroid is actually a it's a artificial structure, which we know by issue 2, and then by issue 3 we know it's a prison for something, and then by this issue it appears to be the prison of a god of some sort. And I think, like, plot wise, like, see, like, all the little notes are there to do something really kind of interesting, and hopefully by issue 5 things are gonna resolve in an even better way. I don't know. Like, maybe things are gonna he's playing with chaos. Can he play with clarity and order at the same time, you know? That would be really the work of a master, I think, is to actually tie all these things together. But remains to be seen, I suppose. Um, well, Red, what are your final thoughts? How do you think about this?
This issue I mostly enjoyed for the visual aesthetics. I think the art is really great. I actually kind of enjoy the body horror, so don't shame
Yeah.
me. Yeah, so I think a lot of it was very visceral and pleasing. I liked the character exposition on the female character, and I think the mystery of what the asteroid actually is interesting as well. The idea that it was an alien brain that they were all entrapped in. Even at the end, where it's showing the impending doom of humanity once the asteroid approaches,
Oh,
they
yeah.
revert back to the scene where they are all in the asteroid as astronauts and still consumed by it, experiencing its aura. So there's a lot of seeds here for a really great reveal at some point, and I hope he doesn't disappoint with all of these detours into the more um, self self flatulation territory that he seems to be indulging in somewhat here as well. So
Hmm. The auto the auto flatulation
yeah.
climax, always worry about those. Twitless, how about you?
um, so as of this issue, again, it's still got some compelling mystery to it. Um, I do agree. I think the tarot stuff is probably unnecessary. Um, the character Nameless is an occult guy. I guess there's some relevance there, but again, he's planting these seeds. He's trying. Again, it's something that his footnotes in the trade paperback he kind of spells out a bit more. But I think he's trying to do something with this comic that I think ends up being very sinister, and that I'm very not just uncomfortable with. I think is absolutely an atrocity. So we'll see how this plays out. But it's on one level, it's still just an unfolding mystery with body horror elements, and again, people who are into the works he's clearly influenced by there are still going to think enjoy those aspects.
Thank you very much for checking out the video. Subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more.